During the experiment to extract anti-cancer drugs, both my wife and I were contaminated. However, my wife decisively chose to give the protective suit and anti-cancer drug to Su Ming. I begged through the glass door, but my wife closed it without hesitation and treated me with cold indifference. Su Ming has always been in poor health. His immunity is weak. Besides, this experiment was originally our research. Su Ming was just an innocent participant. I must prioritize his safety. You'll have to wait. Afterward, my wife not only shifted all responsibility onto me, but also urgently shut down the lab and destroyed evidence. She even changed all my research findings under Su Ming's name. She and Su Ming used the results to save over 10 cancer patients, becoming celebrated young talents. Yet she's still waiting for me to admit my fault and beg her for the medicine. What she doesn't know is, I was diagnosed with cancer 6 months ago. This experimental contamination has dramatically accelerated my death. The anti-cancer drug is useless for me now. After hours of agony, I watched helplessly as my skin gradually turned black and sunken. I was rushed to the hospital and received intensive care day and night for a week. In the end, only my eyeballs could still move in my entire body. I kept staring through the layers of tubes wrapped around my body towards the door. No one was there. Not even my wife came to see me one last time. As the monitor let out a long beep, a tear rolled down from the corner of my eye. The hospital finally issued my death certificate. My soul left my body, and all the pain finally departed from me. Suddenly, my soul seemed to be guided by something, pushing me to my wife Chung Yu's side. She was carefully blowing on the soup in the spoon, gently feeding it to Su Ming. Su Ming coughed weakly a few times, then said with a smile, "You've been taking care of me for so long. When Fan didn't have protective gear, and he didn't take the anti-cancer medication in time, could he be in danger?" Chung Yu's smile instantly froze as she let out a cold snort. "His health has always been fine. He even tried to fight you for the protective suit when the incident happened. You still care about him, Su Ming. You're just too kind. The cancer medication will work as long as it's taken within half a month. Physical discomfort is normal. He's just acting like he's dying because he's jealous. How annoying. I'll consider whether to give him the medicine after he realizes his mistake." I gave a self-mocking smile, and my heart, though no longer beating, still ached. This was my wife whom I had cherished and loved with all my heart. Su Ming took the medicine in time and took away my protective suit. There was nothing wrong with his health at all, yet I had to endure the corrosive pain of infection, alone with cold tubes piercing my skin, and still had to face Chung Yu's sarcasm and doubt. The despair made my very soul tremble. Looking at Chung Yu's smile, I felt like I was being corroded by sulfuric acid, covered in bloody blisters. Such a warm and patient smile I've never seen before. "Chung Yu, you don't need to give me medicine anymore. I don't need it anymore." When there was a knock on the hospital room door, a group of people walked in, and Chung Yu frowned instinctively. She didn't want anyone to disturb Su Ming's rest. That's why she specifically booked the best VIP ward. The person in the lead held a banner with tears streaming down their face. "Professor Chung, thank you. Thanks to the new anti-cancer drug you all developed, which has saved our families that were on the brink of falling apart. The first batch of patients who took your anti-cancer drug are already showing results. Tests show cancer cells have stopped replicating and are gradually decreasing. Both Chung Yu and I are professors at well-known domestic universities, and we both lost family members to cancer. That's why we've dedicated our lives to researching anti-cancer drugs." After hearing this, Chung Yu smiled and quickly pulled Su Ming over. "It's not just my achievement alone. There's also Su." Before Chung Yu could finish speaking, she was interrupted by the elderly person. The elderly person smiled warmly while holding Su Ming's hand. "You must be Professor Cheng's husband, Professor Wen. Thank you both so much. I heard you've been researching cancer drugs to help patients. You're truly good people." Su Ming's face turned extremely pale, and Chung Yu, unable to bear seeing Su Ming upset, immediately changed her expression. "What nonsense are you talking about? All the research data and published papers bear my name and Su Ming's. What does Wen Fan have to do with it? He's just someone seeking fame. The experiment would have succeeded earlier if he hadn't interfered." I looked at Chung Yu with disappointment in my eyes. She knew clearly how much effort I had put into this experiment. But just for Su Ming's feelings, for his future career, Chung Yu completely denied all my efforts, surrendering all my hard work to Su Ming. I felt as if my chest was being torn by a dull knife. The pain was unbearable. After an awkward moment, they began praising Su Ming and Chung Yu while belittling me in various ways. And those two comfortably enjoyed the honor that should have been mine. I silently listened to this barrage of insults and doubts directed at me, until the nurse entered the ward. "Are there any family members of Wen Fan here? Mr. Wen was pronounced dead at 1318 just now. Could the family member please sign here?" The ward instantly fell silent, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Chung Yu was stunned, then recovered and let out a scornful laugh. "Wen Fan? He's too tough to die? Hiwa. Old outlive anyone. How can your hospital make such a ridiculous mistake with names? I don't have time for this nonsense. Should I file a complaint against you? The young nurse was somewhat frightened and began to doubt herself. She looked at the name on the death certificate and Chung Yu's information in the spouse column. She wanted to say something more, but faced with Chung Yu's impatient gaze, the nurse apologized and left. After all, if it were really one's husband who died, even if it was someone with the same name, they would check immediately. And Chung Yu's indifferent attitude made her miss the opportunity to learn about my death. Others gradually found excuses to leave, watching her being cold to her husband while taking care of another man wholeheartedly. The admiration in everyone's eyes from the beginning had now turned into disdain. Su Ming tugged at Chung Yu's sleeve, looking somewhat dejected. Yeah, could it be that when Fan asked the nurse to lie, wanting you to visit him? You should go see him, I'll be fine. A hint of hesitation flashed in Chung Yu's eyes. As Su Ming struggled to stand up, he staggered and nearly fell backward. Chung Yu's face was full of concern, and her tone was reproachful. Look at your condition, yet you're still trying to be considerate of that liar's feelings. We could have gotten back together 6 months ago if he hadn't lied about having cancer. He never tells the truth. I've had enough. This time I must teach him a good lesson. I felt like being repeatedly tormented in boiling oil, and my already fragile soul grew even fainter. Chung Yu and Su Ming were each other's first love, sharing the same aspirations and common interests. However, Su Ming was determined to develop his career abroad and even cut off contact for many years. While Chung Yu's family kept pressuring her, in the 3rd year after their breakup, I met Chung Yu, and for her sake, I willingly married into the Chung family. I took care of Chung Yu's parents wholeheartedly and loved her unreservedly. I handed over my monthly salary and signed a prenuptial agreement. But she still always felt that I was marrying above my station and had ulterior motives. She believed my love was all manipulation. Until 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. At that time, Su Ming suddenly returned to China, and Chung Yu asked for a divorce. But her parents forced her to stay and take care of me. Even she showed a bit of sympathy and accompanied me to medical examinations. However, my test results were switched by Su Ming, and despite my many explanations, Chung Yu refused to believe me. Thinking about the past, my chest ached severely. After that, my weight dropped dramatically, and my hair kept falling out. I also checked regularly, but the results became increasingly concerning. Yet Chung Yu saw all of this as me repeating my old tricks. She was a renowned cancer specialist who had dedicated her life to cancer drug research. But she couldn't see that her husband was suffering from cancer. Even in the late stages, she remained blind to it. I bit my hand in pain until it bled, but Chung Yu would only say dismissively, "Are you done acting? Next time, are you planning to stage your own funeral?" I stumbled and curled up on the ground. "Oh, Chung Yu, this time, you'll truly be attending my funeral." Su Ming licked his cracked lips. Yeah, I want to eat some oranges." Chung Yu immediately nodded. "Okay, wait for me." She rushed downstairs without even putting on her coat, and I followed her at a jog. Seeing her hair matted with sweat, I instinctively wanted to wipe it away for her. Only when my hand passed through her forehead did I belatedly realize. I'm already dead. I smiled bitterly, watching Chung Yu carefully selecting oranges with a furrowed brow. How do I pick sweet oranges? Su Ming doesn't like sour ones. I know exactly how to pick oranges, as I've always taken care of everything from daily meals to household chores. Chung Yu likes oranges, so I always carefully selected them for her. But when I was sick and asked her to peel an orange for me, she would complain endlessly, let alone spending time carefully selecting them for me. She always said her time was precious, and wasting even a minute would delay her research progress. But Su Ming was always her exception. Chung Yu rubbed her head and took out her phone, removing me from her block list. She was somewhat surprised that I, who had always treated her as my life, hadn't left any messages or calls. Chung Yu dialed the number, but there was no answer for a long time. She was furious. "You've really gotten bold, daring to ignore my calls." I was going to have him pick oranges for Su Ming, and I was considering giving him the medicine. I guess I was too nice to him. After saying that, Chung Yu rushed to the hospital with oranges, while I remained floating in place, my heart wrenching in pain. I wanted to leave, but fate was so cruel. I simply couldn't stay away from Chung Yu. I could only watch helplessly as Chung Yu carefully peeled off the white threads from the oranges and fed them piece by piece to Su Ming with a fork. Su Ming enjoyed Chung Yu's care as if it was natural, but spat out the orange the next second. "It's too sour, yeah." Chung Yu immediately threw away the orange, her tone irritated. "It's all Wen Fan's fault. If he had answered his phone, we wouldn't have picked sour ones. I don't know why he dares to not answer my calls." Su Ming lowered his eyes, a calculating look briefly flashing across them. "He must be angry, right? Yeah, let's leave the hospital first. Then we'll go see Wen Fan together. I'll explain everything." Chung Yu sighed, looking at Su Ming with concern. By then, I was already numb with pain, watching everything with hollow eyes. As Chung Yu helped Su Ming into the hallway, they ran into my attending physician. The doctor stepped forward quickly. Professor Chung, why hasn't your husband's death certificate been signed? Our hospital definitely hasn't made any mistake. You should go see your husband one last time as soon as possible. Otherwise, the people from your medical school will soon take Mr. Wen away for autopsy. Chung Yu's face darkened, her hands unconsciously clenching tight. How long are you going to keep this up? How much did Wen Fan pay you? Our school staff dissecting Wen Fan's body. You really are good at making up lies. The doctor was bewildered, unsure if Chung Yu was mentally confused due to excessive shock. He softened his tone. Mr. Wen signed an organ donation agreement before his death. He donated them to your medical school for research, free of charge. You didn't know about this. On the day I was diagnosed with cancer, I thought about it for a long time. I considered discussing it with Chung Yu, but she just brushed it off casually at the time. Do whatever you want with your body. Saves me the trouble of dealing with your corpse. Each word felt like needles piercing my heart. Until death, I never want to cause her any trouble. Looking back now, this was the most correct decision I've ever made. Chung Yu's heart inexplicably skipped a beat, and a sense of panic kept spreading, making her feel uneasy. However, Su Ming suddenly spoke. Yeah, you forgot that Wen Fan has many students who respect him. They're probably working together to deceive you. Otherwise, the donation could have been made to any medical school or organization. Why specifically your school? Isn't it because they're afraid outsiders would expose the truth? Chung Yu's pale face gradually relaxed. Even she overlooked that her concern just now wasn't fake. Anger suppressed reason, and the feeling of being fooled made the usually proud Chung Yu so furious that her chest heaved violently. If you all want to put on an act with Wen Fan, I don't have time for this. Didn't you want to do the dissection? Get on with it. Chung Yu quickly signed her name, then threw it on the ground, stepping over it with her high heels, trampling my sincere feelings along with it. Although I already knew the answer, Chung Yu's indifference was still unbearable for me. Chung Yu left with Su Ming without looking back. But Chung Yu, you would have seen my corpse being wheeled out by the staff if you had just turned your head. You would have noticed something if you had just glanced at that death certificate, but your eyes were only fixed on Su Ming. Chung Yu stayed to take care of Su Ming for several days, while Su Ming slept in my bed, wearing my pajamas. And I could only helplessly crouch in the corner, enduring the torment, until the medical school leaders kept urging Chung Yu to return to school. After hanging up the phone, Chung Yu looked irritated. She said in a gentle tone, Su Ming, take good rest. I need to go back to school. That Wen Fan has disappeared who knows where. Not going home, not going to school. I have to handle everything. Su Ming smiled mysteriously. All right, I'll wait for your return. When Chung Yu got to school, she looked everywhere for me, but everyone was giving her strange looks. This made Chung Yu feel more restless, until my student Xiao Yan approached her. Weren't you looking for Professor Wen? He's inside, you can go in. Chung Yu snorted coldly. So this is where you're hiding. Wen Fan, I've had enough of your tricks. Come out and apologize, or I'll feed this medicine to dogs rather than give it to you. But inside there was only a cold autopsy table and white cloth, and the color slowly drained from Chung Yu's face. Her legs felt heavy as lead, and with trembling hands, she slowly lifted the white cloth. My pale face appeared before Chung Yu, with obvious grotesque suture lines from the autopsy. The body was almost completely sunken in. Chung Yu turned her head to see my organs floating in formaldehyde. The entire morgue was like my graveyard, my body dissected and stored. And all of this was the result of Chung Yu's indifference. I couldn't bear to look at my own tragic state after death, as memories of the pain and suffering during life kept surfacing. Various examinations and cold needles and tubes piercing my skin, my hair shaved off completely. Every breath feels like having a razor blade in my throat, with an iron rust taste of sweetness. And my beloved wife is serving tea and water to another man. She blocked my number, making it impossible for me to reach her until my death. For a few seconds, Chung Yu stood still at the same spot. Her silhouette seemed hazy, breathing with difficulty, like a dying fish. She put down the white cloth, wanting to say something, but tears came first. Chung Yu could no longer control her trembling body and collapsed powerlessly on the ground. My hand drooped down, palm covering the back of her hand. The cold touch made Chung Yu shiver all over. That once warm palm would never exist again. She raised her head, looking at the wedding ring on my ring finger, her eyes turning red. Until my death, I never took off my wedding ring. But her right hand remained empty, as the wedding ring was a constraint to her. It would constantly remind her of the fact that we were married, and she didn't want to upset Su Ming. So she sold our wedding rings and exchanged them for customized couple necklaces. She and Su Ming each got one, symbolizing their unique love. Chung Yu held my hands, unable to control her sobs, kneeling on the ground hysterically. Why? I remained a cold observer on the side. After too many disappointments, I can hardly feel emotional fluctuations anymore. I'm dead. Shouldn't she be happy? In my final moments of agony, I made one last call to Chengyu with my remaining obsession. But before I could finish, Chengyu impatiently interrupted with an icy tone. Stop pretending to be dead. If you really died, then I could be with Su Ming. This is all because of you. If it weren't for you, Su Ming and I would still have a chance. Aren't you just acting pitiful because you want the medicine? Do you know how astronomically expensive one anti-cancer pill costs outside? You want to take it? Are you even worthy? I laughed bleakly. Indeed, I'm not worthy. Now, I've saved you the cost of one expensive pill. Chengyu, are you satisfied now? Su Ming rushed over and pulled Chengyu into his arms. At this moment, Chengyu was like a tangled mess, desperately needing a reliable embrace. She couldn't stop crying, pointing at my corpse while trembling. Su Ming, did I cause his death? I didn't mean to. It was just contamination. How could he possibly die? I wasn't withholding medicine from him either. I just wanted him to admit his mistake. Su Ming spoke gently. It's all right. It must have been some problem with his own body. He knew his health was poor, yet he still insisted on participating in the experiment just to prevent us from being alone. Chengyu stopped crying, as if she had finally found an excuse for her cruelty. Yes, he always liked to lie, always got jealous. I told him there was nothing between us, and he knew the experiment was dangerous. But he still concealed his health condition and came along. He was killed by his own pettiness. I couldn't help but laugh towards the sky, and as I laughed, tears streamed down my face. Did I hide my health condition? I told Chengyu countless times that I was diagnosed with cancer, and it was rapidly deteriorating. But she never believed me and attacked me with the most vicious words. The bathroom was covered with my fallen hair, and there were blood stains from my coughing by the bed. My body seemed to have aged 10 years, and I was nothing but skin and bones. Yet all these obvious truths were deliberately ignored by Chengyu. I was jealous because I knew Su Ming had ill intentions. His sudden appearance made me feel something was wrong, and my friend's investigation revealed that Su Ming worked for a foreign pharmaceutical company. That company had stolen many Chinese herbal medicines and patents from domestic companies, so I advised Chengyu not to trust Su Ming too much. But in the end, I was seen as just being jealous and unreasonable. I had already given up hope, watching my fragile soul shake its head with a bitter smile. Su Ming gently patted Chengyu's back to comfort her, while his eyes kept glancing at my corpse. A faint smile curled at the corner of my mouth, while my heart remained unusually calm. From beginning to end, besides me, Su Ming was the only one who knew I didn't have long to live. He switched my reports, making Chengyu suspicious of me. He kept pushing Chengyu to speed up the research, afraid others might get ahead. This forced me to overwork my body, helping Chengyu day and night without rest. His final step in the plan was to deliberately sabotage the experiment. He exposed the samples to air, creating a fatal problem after the experiment's success. As he expected, with only one protective suit and the first dose left. Between me and Su Ming, Chengyu chose Su Ming without hesitation. She didn't even look at me once, nor listen to my pleas, before making the decision that determined my life and death. Chengyu never trusted me. Su Ming supported Chengyu as they left. She had already regained her composure. Perhaps Su Ming's comfort worked, as she blamed all mistakes and responsibilities on me. They even discussed what to have for dinner while I followed beside them. I feel like I've spent my whole life on this woman, and honestly, it wasn't worth it at all. Her calmness, as if my death was nothing more than a movie. When the screening ends, all joys and sorrows simply fade away. Her tears are as fake as those of a crocodile. After returning home, Su Ming held Chengyu's hand with a serious expression. Yeah, I had to let you hate and blame me before, because your parents forced me to leave you. I left alone for abroad, and no matter how difficult these years have been, I never wanted to disturb you. But 6 months ago, I just wanted to see you once more, which caused one fan's misunderstanding. Now, I can finally tell you, I love you. Yeah, will you give me a chance? Chengyu's eyes instantly welled up with tears as she covered her face and nodded repeatedly. I will. I knew you had your reasons for leaving without saying goodbye back then. If when Fan hadn't suddenly appeared, my parents wouldn't have made me marry him. I could have waited for you forever, and we could have gotten back together 6 months ago. It was when Fan again, but now he's gone. Over these years, I've done everything I could for him. We owe each other nothing. It turns out that Chengyu always thought I was the one who blocked their love. However, she could have refused the arranged marriage from her family, and could have rejected my proposal. But she chose to accept, making me believe I wasn't trying hard enough. So I kept chasing after her, offering her my sincere heart. But 6 months ago, when I was diagnosed with cancer, she asked for a divorce. At that time, I saw how she looked at Su Ming, in a way I had never seen before. I knew that look very well, because that's how I often looked at her. That's the look of being in love with someone. For Chengyu, I gave up my previous career and abandoned my social circle. I stayed alone with her in this strange city. When I was suffering from illness, my beloved wife wanted to reconcile with her first love. Su Ming even schemed to switch my medical reports, causing me to be falsely accused. I endured all of this, but in the end, Chung Yu said everything was my fault. Over the years, I studied with her devotedly, always putting her name before mine. I understood her pride and put her on a pedestal, but she looked down on me and trampled me underfoot. I thought my heart was already covered in scars, but I didn't expect her words would tear open my wounds again. My entire soul feels hollowed out, leaving only a huge, bleeding void. How can you say we're even? Chung Yu, you owe me far too much. I watched as Chung Yu and Su Ming embraced tightly, kissing in front of my photograph. After the final barrier was broken, their relationship quickly intensified. They acted like any married couple, shopping for groceries together, using the methods I taught Chung Yu to pick vegetables and fruits, using the savings I accumulated through frugal living to renovate their new home. Meanwhile, I was forgotten in a corner, with all my photos and belongings locked away in a closet in the storage room. That day, while Chung Yu was cutting vegetables, there was a knock at the door. She went to open it with a smile. Ming, did you forget your key? Outside the door stood a lawyer and an assistant, who handed Chung Yu a document. Ms. Chung, this is your husband's will. All assets and deposits under his name have been transferred to you. Please review the terms, and if everything is in order, please sign. Chung Yu wanted to take the will, but her movements were slow. Though just a thin piece of paper, it felt so heavy in her hands at this moment. As Chung Yu read word by word, she suddenly felt a lump in her throat, her heart tightening. During my life, I took meticulous care of her daily needs. After death, I've also provided security for her future. Chung Yu suddenly remembered how I used to love eating instant noodles and always bargained when buying vegetables. She couldn't understand why I was so frugal and felt embarrassed by my bargaining. It seemed that starting 6 months ago, I became even more frugal, trying to stretch every dollar. She would often mock me, saying, "You won't even replace your clothes when they have holes, and the house is full of instant noodles you've hoarded. You're so frugal, but I don't see much more money in your account." Back then, I would just smile without saying anything, my eyes always red. And now, all the money I saved has gone to her. A full 200,000. Chung Yu's hands trembled, tears falling drop by drop onto the paper. She didn't want to wet the will, but couldn't control her tears. Witnessing all this, I felt no moved, only regret. This money, I would rather have donated it to the school. My past foolishness felt like a slap, striking my face hard once again. As Su Ming turned the door lock, Chung Yu rushed over with a choked voice. Ming, when Fan has left all his money to us, I feel so guilty. Is there any way to let him rest in peace? I don't want him to continue being a body donor teacher. How much suffering would he endure? I laughed mockingly at myself. Wasn't it you who had been torturing me all along? Impatience flashed in Su Ming's eyes as he forced himself to speak. It's fine, I'll figure something out. Give me this money, I want to take you abroad. Let's live in a different environment, it will be much better for your condition. Chung Yu was stunned. She trusted Su Ming completely and went to the bedroom without hesitation to give him the card. What made her hesitate was that if she left, no one in this city would remember when Fan anymore. Chung Yu couldn't understand what exactly caused the emotions in her heart, as she clearly loved Su Ming. But now, her heart ached as if it was about to stop suddenly. Su Ming showed a satisfied smile, then pulled Chung Yu to sit on the sofa. Yeah, we need to apply for a patent for the anti-cancer drug we developed. And now you've achieved both fame and fortune, but I'm still nobody. No one in the laboratory trusts me. Could you just keep my name only? We are one entity. You wouldn't mind putting just my name, would you? Chung Yu frowned, hesitating somewhat. Su Ming continued. We're about to get married. Don't you even have basic trust in me? Chung Yu shook her head and held on to Su Ming tightly, as if grasping at the last lifeline. She could no longer bear to lose Su Ming again. I promise you, as long as the medicine can be successfully launched and save more families. I don't mind about your name. I can be the wife behind you. I felt a chill in my heart, remembering all the academic papers and research we had done together. But it was always under her name. She drew a clear line between us. I was me, and she was she. She would become furious if my name appeared alongside hers in an academic research paper. She would say, I wrote most of this, you only provided some ideas and direction. Why do you have to be credited with me? To share in my glory. She ignored my efforts and denied my value. She was petty with me and wouldn't give an inch. She was perfectly content to let me become invisible while paving her way forward. Yet she didn't care at all about gains and losses with Su Ming, willingly holding an umbrella for him. I smiled sarcastically. Perhaps this is what love is, something that makes people foolish. Just when Chung Yu had made up her mind to go abroad and completely break free from our past, the group of people who had originally come to the hospital to express their gratitude appeared again, and Chung Yu thought they were coming to thank her. However, unexpectedly, She was met with a barrage of angry words as the elderly person shakily pointed at her. Professor Chung, you said your cancer research was meant to save lives. But now your medicine costs 100,000 per pill. Who can afford that? And you're even asking us early patients to pay back the price difference. Have you lost your mind? If Professor Wen were here, he would never allow this. Cheng Yu was overwhelmed by the scolding and nervously closed the door. She frantically called Su Ming, and the phone rang for a long time before he answered. Cheng Yu was breathing heavily and spoke in panic. Su Ming, what's going on? Why did the price of the medicine suddenly increase so much? Our original intention wasn't to make money. It was to save lives. Su Ming irritably interrupted. If not for money, why else would we research this stuff? You don't even know how crazy the demand for this medicine has become. We can make a lot of money. Are you a fool like Wen Fan? Why are you becoming more and more like Wen Fan now? Cheng Yu was stunned, realizing she had unconsciously been saying things that Wen Fan would say. She had also become as stubborn and foolish as Wen Fan. During this time, whenever she cooked, she would always feel as if Wen Fan was beside her, teaching her hand in hand. All the dishes she made were Wen Fan's specialties, and even the TV shows she watched were the ones Wen Fan used to watch when she was alive. She, who never liked flowers before, began to fill her home with fresh flowers and often nagged Su Ming. Cheng Yu remained silent for a long time, her lips trembling, not knowing how to refute. After Wen Fan's death, she had become the very person she used to hate the most. Cheng Yu came back to her senses and spoke in a stern tone. The medicine prices cannot be changed. Change them back immediately. This was the first time Cheng Yu had been so firm with Su Ming. Even I was somewhat surprised. Su Ming clearly hadn't expected this either, and then responded perfunctorily. All right, I'll do as you say, okay? After the phone call ended, Cheng Yu stood motionless, staring blankly at her phone. Ever since she handed over all authorship rights and patents to Su Ming began staying out late, and now he didn't even come home. His attitude had changed drastically. Cheng Yu suddenly looked out the window, where the vibrant tulips were swaying in the sunlight on the balcony. But the person who used to water and tend to those tulips was gone forever. Cheng Yu's eyes stung, and her throat tightened. If it were Wen Fan, he would never treat her like this. As the departure date drew closer, Cheng Yu packed all her luggage on the agreed day of leaving. She took one last look at the home where she had lived for 10 years, then resolutely turned and left. Until the airport staff repeated for the 5th time, I'm sorry, madam, but we really cannot find your flight information. Cheng Yu's mind was filled with a deafening buzz as she frantically called Su Ming over and over. But dozens of calls went unanswered, just like that day when Su Ming had abruptly broken up with her and abandoned her to go abroad. Cheng Yu's hands fell powerlessly. She collapsed on the ground, breaking down in tears. The contents of her suitcase were scattered everywhere. Professor Chung, who was usually calm and proud, now looked like a pathetic joke. The rain grew heavier as Cheng Yu dragged her damaged suitcase away from the airport in the rain. Her feet were covered in blisters, having discarded her high heels somewhere along the way. With a soft sound, a ring fell into the mud. Cheng Yu slowly crouched down to pick up the ring, the one she had taken off Wen Fan's finger. She didn't know why she had done it, perhaps just to keep as a memento. But now, holding the ring, her heart was filled with grievance. Wen Fan, if you were here, you wouldn't treat me like this, would you? You would pick me up and take me home, dry my hair, and make me porridge. You wouldn't abandon me. I silently gazed at the soaking wet Cheng Yu. She didn't know that I had been here all along. She doesn't know that when I see her now, I feel no sympathy, only disgust. As the rain stopped, Cheng Yu's body stiffened, and she slowly raised her head. But it wasn't the face she had been longing for day and night. It was my student, Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's face was cold. Su Ming stole our patents and sold them to foreign institutions. He's making huge profits from cancer drugs. I don't care whether you knew about this or not. But we won't allow Professor Wen's hard-earned research results to become a money-making tool for unscrupulous foreign companies. Cheng Yu froze. She opened her cracked lips, and after the tearing pain came the taste of blood. Su Ming said he would adjust the prices back. He won't sell the drugs to foreign countries. Cheng Yu's voice grew increasingly quiet, clearly lacking confidence herself. All her trust and idealized view of Su Ming had begun to crack. Xiao Yan said nothing, just took Cheng Yu to the detention center. Su Ming was taken into custody, and Xiao Yan along with other graduate students filed a formal complaint against Cheng Yu and Su Ming for stealing experimental results. In particular, Su Ming's illegal resale involved counterfeit drug dealings and harming patients, resulting in multiple criminal charges. To prevent Cheng Yu from having any false hopes, evidence of Su Ming's customs video footage and the sale of cancer drug patents was all presented before Cheng Yu. Faced with this outcome, Cheng Yu was clearly devastated. Xiao Yan, seeing Cheng Yu on the verge of breakdown, had no intention of letting her off. Professor Chung, you've seen Professor Wen's body. Did you examine his lungs carefully? You should understand better than me what lungs with lung cancer look like. Were you too afraid to look, or did you not see it? Here's the cancer diagnosis report from 6 months ago. Take a good look at it. Chung-yu felt as if electricity was coursing through her body, every nerve ending trembling violently. She recalled that moment in the autopsy room, where she had been too afraid to examine Wenfan's organs closely, and missed the opportunity to learn the truth. Chung-yu looked desperate. How is this possible? He was clearly lying to me. Chung-yu recalled accompanying Wenfan to the hospital for a checkup 6 months ago, with Su Ming present at the time. When the results came out, Wenfan immediately claimed that Su Ming had switched the reports. But she was so devoted to Su Ming that she didn't believe Wenfan at all. Chung-yu's face turned pale. If this was true, then Wenfan's death was directly caused by her. Chung-yu's legs gave out, and she fell to her knees, letting out a huge cry of anguish. She felt as if she was being torn apart, crying until she nearly fainted. Xiaoyan handed my phone to Chung-yu, unable to hide the sadness on her otherwise cold face. I've been waiting for the right time to give you this phone. Professor Wen loved you deeply, but you weren't worthy of his love. Chung-yu took the phone. Everyone had told her that Wenfan loved her. She knew it clearly too. That's why she had taken advantage of Wenfan's love so recklessly. She unlocked the phone. The password was her birthday. The wallpaper was still their wedding photo, unchanged for 10 years. It had never changed. Chung-yu held back her tears as she discovered the text messages between Su Ming and Wenfan. Starting from 6 months ago, Su Ming had been constantly provoking Wenfan. Especially on the day of the hospital follow-up, Su Ming's messages were full of smugness. So what if you found out it was me who switched your diagnostic report? The fake medical record I fabricated in advance was so obviously false that anyone paying attention could spot the inconsistencies. But Chung-yu didn't care at all. She just glanced at the name and concluded you were lying. Wenfan, your life is such a failure. There were countless intimate photos of Chung-yu and Su Ming. Chung-yu had always thought Wenfan was jealously stalking her. She never imagined it was Su Ming who had been constantly sharing location information, deliberately sowing discord between them. Chung-yu gripped her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Suddenly an alarm went off, showing it was wife's birthday. Only then did Chung-yu remember that today was our birthday. The memo was full of the day's itinerary and prepared gifts. When an unknown number called, Chung-yu answered while fighting back tears. Hello, Mr. Wen. The cake you ordered has been delivered to your door. Would it be convenient for you to come pick it up now? Chung-yu broke down in tears, no longer able to hold her phone steady. Chung-yu was also taken in for questioning, appearing throughout like a soulless shell. When she finally saw Su Ming, all her emotions exploded. She screamed hysterically through the glass window. Su Ming, you lied to me. You just wasted Wenfan's life's work. You even switched his medical reports, making me misunderstand him for so long, missing the time I could have spent with him. You said you'd take me abroad, but you never even booked the tickets. You never intended to have a future with me. But for you, I abandoned Wenfan and drove him to his death. Everything is because of you. You're the one who killed him. Su Ming finally dropped his facade, folding his arms and speaking with cold sarcasm. Was I the one who wasted Wenfan's life's work? Who voluntarily handed over Wenfan's inheritance to me? Who begged me to marry you and take you abroad? You repeatedly betrayed Wenfan, throwing yourself at me, and now when things go wrong, you blame it all on me. As a cancer specialist, don't you know what late-stage cancer looks like? The medical report was so obviously fake. I made it in a hurry, couldn't you tell? You're just selfish. You never loved Wenfan. Now that he's dead, why pretend to be so devoted? Every word was cutting, yet all of it was true. Chung-yu spoke with a hoarse voice, clinging to her last hope. Back then, you said your parents forced you to go abroad. Your love for me, was that true or false? Su Ming looked at her with contempt. Chung-yu, do you really think you're that special? You're over 30, but still acting like you're 18. Besides that fool Wenfan, who would ever be interested in you? I was simply tired of you back then, so I left with my professor's daughter. If I hadn't failed with her, and if I wasn't originally here for your experiments, did you really think I waited all those years for you? Chung-yu, with reddened eyes, kept banging on the glass, releasing her breakdown and despair without caring about her appearance. If it weren't for the glass between them, Chung-yu might have truly ended it all with Su Ming. I had never seen Chung-yu so distraught, but it wasn't for my sake. It was because her pride and dignity were trampled underfoot. After my death, she finally realized. Without my love, she was worthless. Chung-yu was taken away by the police, but was released since she was truly unaware of everything. Su Ming, however, faced a prison sentence of over 7 years, and my students weren't planning to let him off either. They fought for justice, determined to reclaim the patent, drive down the prices, and fulfill my original intention. At that moment, my long-cold soul was instantly filled with warmth. Chung-yu stood outside the police station, not knowing where to go. She returned home in a daze, finding the cake left at the doorstep. She looked at the pink label, recognizing Wenfan's handwriting. Happy birthday, my love. I hope that even without me by your side in the future, you'll still be happy every day. May all your days ahead be filled with sunshine. Tears rolled down Chengyu's cheeks. At this moment, Wenfan must have been on the edge of death. His handwriting was messy. He must have been enduring great pain. Chengyu couldn't imagine how much torment Wenfan's body was going through when he wrote these words. And she had never been there for him, even making him so disheartened that he donated his body. Chengyu opened it to find her favorite mango cake, and she lit the candles. But there was no one to sing her the birthday song, no one by her side. Chengyu silently turned on the natural gas in the kitchen and closed all doors and windows. She put his ring on her ring finger and gently kissed it. Then she numbly ate the cake bite by bite, with a bitter smile. Wenfan, the cake is supposed to be sweet, but why does it taste so bitter to me? Wenfan, were you in a lot of pain when you left? Forgive me, I only realized I had long fallen in love with you after you were gone. Yet I stubbornly dwelled in the past, ignoring your feelings. Wenfan, in the next life, move forward, don't look back. And never, meet me again. Chengyu smiled with tears as she opened the lighter. With a bang, the entire house was instantly engulfed in flames. In the intense heat, she departed to another world. The burning sensation on her skin must have been excruciating. She could have chosen to end her life with pills. Yet she chose the most painful way to die, until she was completely burned and breathed her last. And at that moment, my soul was finally set free, transforming from substance to transparency. I don't believe she truly loved me. I think she was just finding an excuse for herself in her moment of despair. Perhaps this way, she wouldn't suffer as much. I walked towards the backlight, finally breaking free